1. I'd like to zoom in on this specific issue which is really bothering me when we get together with mother-in-law and the rest of my significant other's family. So she has what I would call an obsession around food. She's very into non-inflammatory recipes due to an autoimmune disease. Fair. Took a course on it, teaches cooking camp for kids every summer, talks about food and stuff she ate all the time. When she had a love affair with all organic recipes, she bought everything organic from scratch. Like ground black pepper in a recipe, couldn't be the one she already had in her cupboard. Her food tastes great, by the way. On to the dinner and eating situations. So many examples. The first time my significant other introduced us, we went to a restaurant, and I was vegetarian, so I ordered 2 starters rather than a main course. I finished 1.5 of them and couldn't eat any more. She was paying, and commenting on how you really shouldn't order 2 dishes if you can't finish them. I almost never finish my plate, by the way. When she invites us, our kids, sister-in-law, and her family for a week-long stay in a summer house during the summer. Awful. She pays for everything, including food. When we go shopping and I grab stuff for my kids, she'll usually comment on whether we need it. On the next to last day, my significant other picked up a liter of milk for morning coffee and my son's breakfast, and she literally had a problem with it. Seems to be around food waste. One night, my significant other got up from the table at dinner to put his dish in the sink before she was done eating, and she disciplined him right then and there. Like you're not allowed to get up before she's everyone, but she spends like an hour eating and talking your ears off. Done eating. When our firstborn was 1 week old, we spent New Year's Eve at her house and had dinner. My son began crying in the other room, and I got up to breastfeed, and she told me to sit right back down. And I did. For a minute. Then I ran to him anyway. It's so tense at these dinners that I can't do them anymore. I have ADHD and get impatient. But I actually don't think that is the issue. I just can't do the rules, the constant focus on food, sitting still for however long she takes to eat, the never-ending talk, the monologue, about stuff that doesn't matter, her trying to persuade us, my kids included, into appreciating the food like she does, even when the kids obviously don't enjoy it. I always release my kids from the table as soon as they're done in these situations because I find it excruciating. I have no issues around food whatsoever. I don't know how to handle this. It's getting painful. Hellfreezer's note. I think the ultimate solution here is you release the kids, just release yourself and your husband as well. Your mother, this sounds like the main problem here, the obsession with food and how other people deal with it, and she's certainly welcome to have whichever dietary restrictions work best for her. But that's all on her. If you're done eating, get up, go away, watch TV, read a book, go for a run, learn how to juggle. You don't have to be sitting there for an hour afterward. If she wants to take her time eating, that's fine, she's allowed to do that. But that doesn't mean you should all be culinary hostages at her dinner table. Essentially, rebel. Do it politely, but do it firmly. And best of luck. Bon appetit. 2. Just needed to vent, quite honestly. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and finally went no contact with my husband's, who's 32, mother yesterday. For years she has tormented me and my husband, and I refuse to allow her to do the same with my now 1-year-old son. She is a very openly racist, narcissistic person with no filter, and frankly an energy vampire. Every outburst or episode she has is someone else's fault, and she has never once taken personal responsibility for her words or actions. Since I have been with my husband, these are some examples of what mother-in-law has done. Gotten into a fight with her son and threatened to drive off and crash his car, threatened to shoot her husband with a gun that she owns, has threatened to go kill herself on many occasions because she is upset with one of us, told off a homeless person right in front of me and my son in a dangerous area, threw a corded telephone at a retail worker, cursing them out because they wouldn't accept her return since she did not have the receipt, gone no contact with us for months at a time over disagreements or fights, often initiated by her, then comes back into our lives like nothing ever happened. She also constantly belittles, talks down to, and controls her own husband, my husband's stepdad, to the point where it has become an abusive relationship for him. She tries to do the same with my husband every time they are together, and also tries to control and manipulate everything that I do. She normally complains about everyone in her life to some extent, and shuts people out over the littlest of things. She held a grudge over her own sister's head that lasted until her deathbed, and refused to see her when she died of cancer. All this to say, I finally decided to go no contact during a trip we took to this beach condo that my husband's grandmother owns for my first son's birthday, along with my dad and stepmom. From the moment we arrived, none of us felt welcome because she was complaining about almost every move we made and obsessing over the weirdest details. For example, she was complaining that she found a piece of popcorn under one of the couches, and that my husband's cousin, who used the condo last, accidentally left her robot vacuum unplugged. She would also brag about owning the place, and paying cash for it when her mother was actually the owner who bought the condo. She is currently too elderly to visit. The first night of the trip, we finally got there, and were really hungry, so we all decided to go eat so we could get some food, including my 1-year-old. She got in a screaming match with me and my husband on the way there because she kept asking for the name of the restaurant and wouldn't listen to my husband's response. I respond in a playful way, "Hey, let's all just take a chill pill and go eat some food." So she storms off to the bowling alley next to the restaurant. She decides to walk home to the condo from there while we all eat. It was within walking distance. The next few days wound up being a little better, but not great. She still kept complaining about everything we did and not letting any of us breathe and enjoy a real vacation. She was also inviting herself to everything any of us did, so that we had no way of escaping her. But the day before yesterday is when things got really bad. That entire morning she was tense and cleaning everything in that place, even spraying a cleaner on the counter, and it gets on our food while we're trying to eat breakfast. She freaks out because my dad had cut some watermelon and there was a drop or two that landed on this $5 rug in the kitchen and was making it a big deal, demanding that my husband scrub the stain out right away. Then she gets upset at us taking a fork out of the dishwasher to use, and us pressing resume cycle. She acted like we were trying to restart the dishwasher and wasting electricity and water running it over and over. My husband tried to show her that was not the case and she screams, "You don't talk to me like that." And then she proceeds to curse and scream at him right in front of my 1-year-old, me and my stepmom. She starts screaming and pacing and almost steps on my son. I simply say, "This is not healthy," and walk out with my son. She proceeds to curse us all out to my husband when I leave, and keeps referring to me as that dumb bitch, claiming I was texting everyone to complain about her and blaming me for having an attitude with her. My stepmom was flabbergasted the entire time and could not believe mother-in-law's outlandish behavior. My husband is also able to record some of her screaming so that I see for a fact she called me that dumb bitch. The most ridiculous part is that when I walk back in 5 minutes later to grab something for my son so we could drive off somewhere, and she touches my hair and cries while saying, "I love you. Your dad is causing all of these problems." Not once addressing or apologizing for her own behavior, only more manipulation and lies. I just simply respond, "I am leaving now." We left the condo yesterday, cutting our vacation short by a few days. I finally decided to send her a text yesterday explaining that until she can account for her abusive and manipulative behaviors and work towards becoming more stable, I will not allow her anywhere near me or my son, ending with, sincerely, that dumb bitch. I blocked her on everything and feel so much relief now. Just hoping that my husband will follow suit and we can both escape this abuse once and for all. I just wanted to see if anyone has any advice, tips, or experience with maintaining no contact with a pushy and unstable mother-in-law. Want to make sure that I tie up any loose ends to finally be free from her trauma and not allow her to cause harm to my son. Hellfreezer's note, it feels good now, but there will probably come a point in the near future where you start to feel guilty. Push past that. It's for the best of everyone, certainly for your child, but the whole family, really. Your mother-in-law isn't going to change, and the only way she probably would change is if she got a therapist and ended up getting medicated, because she sounds like she's certainly got some sort of condition. Or she could just be a terrible person. But either way, when you're tempted to cave and maybe think, well, if we let her back in, things will be different this time. But they won't be. And she's not going to change unless she seeks out help, which I feel is very unlikely, unless she's forced to. 3. I have no contact with my mother-in-law. I used to live with her, and during that time, I had been my most depressed, anxious, and simply downright miserable. Before moving in, I was at a good weight. I never experienced bad acne, the occasional pimple here and there, and I had struggled in the past with specific stuff, but never my appearance. Moving in with her, and suddenly I gained weight. I started breaking out terribly, and due to the high levels of stress, my menstrual cycle was completely thrown off. Beforehand, I was always on time and regular, to then going 2 months without. I was terrified, on the one thought that I was possibly pregnant. I felt terrible about myself, and it was strange to me feeling so self-conscious about my looks. I went to a doctor and was instructed that my cortisol levels were high. I was told to seek therapy, and from there, when I shared my struggles at home with mother-in-law, I was instructed to move out because the emotional trauma was affecting me physically. The list of things my mother-in-law has done: talking bad about me, my family, spreading rumors about me, speaking to my husband, and trying to come in between our relationship. My husband, thank God for his respect towards me. Each time he shot it down, but even so, with each time she got more aggressive, calling me a whore, prostitute, gold digger. If you can name it, I'm sure she has said it. They have a dog, and I'm allergic to dogs, so I put a boundary and refused for the dog to be in the room I was renting. You know, so I wouldn't die. Then I was called an animal hater and that I hate the dog and yell at and abuse him. Never yelled nor laid a finger on the dog. I love animals, but sadly my lungs will shut down if I spend too much time around them. Mother-in-law said it's a lie. The dog is hypoallergenic. No, he's not. If so, please explain why my eyes were practically swollen shut and my lungs struggling to breathe the first week I was there. So either she's lying or was lied to. The drama and everything got so bad when I wouldn't pretend like nothing happened, because I was also disrespectful for holding my mother-in-law's actions against her and not letting her get away with everything. How I turned her son away from her, I'm the manipulator, I'm the controlling bitch. She's even made racist remarks regarding my country, my culture, and my family. I stayed in my room, that I did pay rent for. I felt like a rat, hiding in my room and sneaking out to eat or run to the bathroom. My husband tried twice to make the situation work, but once the doctors and therapists told me distance and move out, otherwise my mental state will only get worse, we both moved out and have been no contact with her. I constantly think back to all the accusations she had made against me. I have tried my hardest to remain respectful towards her, but I do think about all the things I could have done to be disrespectful. I could have confronted and yelled at her about the things she does. I could have called her out for being a terrible mother, leaving the country whenever she has a fight with one of her children, causing people to worry when she randomly disappears, calling her out for being childish. If I wanted to, I know I could hurt her by mentioning her husband's father, going on and on about how amazing he is, he truly is, how he's an amazing father-in-law, so supporting of us and helpful. How he's always there for us when we need him. I know how that would set her off because she loves to talk crap on father-in-law. I know it would hurt her saying about the things we do with him that we have never done with her. I go into these rants about it to my husband each time he listens to me and tells me that I need to try and let it go since she is no longer in our lives. I go on about future events. How I don't want her involved with our children, how I don't want her to even know or find out through other people, because I know she hates to find things out last. I want her to hurt and go through the same bull she put me through, but I also don't because I don't want anyone to go through that. I don't want to be a person who wishes pain on somebody. I have never been that type of person. But when it comes to this woman, she just brings out the worst in me. Even now, when I don't even see her, nor do I speak to her, she is still constantly on my mind. Does anyone have any advice on how to let go of this hatred? Hellfreezer's note: it will eventually fade with time. You just have to remind yourself how good it feels to be free of her, and that she has literally no control over your lives. That the situation she's in right now, she is the one who will likely be suffering because she can't have what she wants. But in the end, it doesn't matter. Because you don't have to think about her, you don't have to see her every day. You just have to enjoy the freedom without her in your life. 4. I'm 25 and have been with my girlfriend for over a decade now. We are approaching that point where marriage, potentially having kids, and where to settle down is talked about often. But I'm not entirely on the same page as my girlfriend with that future. I'm very hesitant to solidify a permanent future with her and her family for many reasons. The main reason, and the only one I'll talk about, is her parents and extended family. I'll only be talking about a few topics and situations with them, so please keep in mind it's not the entire picture. She comes from a big family whose political, social, and religious beliefs are far different from mine. Over the course of 12 years, I have never spoken my opinions with any of these topics, because a clash of differences is something they proclaim as okay, but shows something else entirely when it happens. I say that because 1, her father proclaims people having different opinions is okay, but then proceeds to scold the opposite political party, or scoffs at people who don't believe in religion like they're stupid. He tends to butt heads with my girlfriend's younger sister, who has different opinions than him, and it's from these disagreements his true colors show. He thinks believing something bigger than yourself is some kind of majestic value and characteristic, when in reality there are several reasons one chooses not to believe in religion, and don't necessarily deal with values. The hypocrisy emanating from him doesn't make me feel comfortable speaking my mind, and because of how obvious of a hypocrite he is, I would most certainly call him out on it. I'm not talking strictly about disagreeing with religion and politics either. It's a plethora of social topics and how people should carry themselves as well. Anyway, if I were to vocalize disagreement, it would create a potentially messy situation, so I avoid speaking my mind altogether. Second, I'm really into horror movies and novels, and have been my entire life. The amount of condescending and passive comments her mother has made over the years is too many to count. In junior high and high school, when I was still very young, her comments got to me a lot. I questioned myself, and if maybe enjoying horror as much as I do implied I had something wrong with me. And I obviously don't think this way, but the immediate labeling of people who enjoy horror is nevertheless very frustrating. I received my degree in creative writing and write horror stories on the side, so it is a sincere passion of mine. For that to constantly be ridiculed makes it hard to imagine an entire life with it. Also relating to her mother, I have multiple tattoos on my arms and have hidden them for nearly 4 years. Her mother associates tattoos with criminals and frowns upon them immensely. When my girlfriend got her rook pierced, she ran upstairs and cried, stating, "You modified your body," in such a hysterical tone. Her extended family thinks the same way regarding tattoos, and those who don't believe in religion, they are very religious, one's a pastor, which furthers how much I wallow in concealing my real self. It has created such a mental battle with myself because I often feel like a timid loser for concealing a large part of who I am. I have felt this way being around them since I first started dating my girlfriend, which was when I was 12 years old. I often remind myself through all this time this could have been avoided entirely if I was with more like-minded people, and felt comfortable enough to speak my mind in an environment that isn't so harsh and concerned with control. Like I mentioned earlier, it's not the entire picture with them. There's another long list of issues with her parents' guilt-tripping, controlling, hiding behind a wall of niceness, hypocrisy, entitlement, their alcoholism, the disguised mistreatment towards me with words and facial expressions, the never-ending pressure to do things this way or that way. I could go on, but I don't want to bore those who are listening to this and make sure they get through it. Marrying into a sea of people I share nearly zero similarities with, and people who display nightmarish behavior has put me at a standstill with furthering our relationship. I've spoken to my girlfriend about these issues several times, and have tried to get her to say something on occasion. She never does and never has. She defends them and gets immediately frustrated when I bring them up to her. I fear I will be on an island if I marry and set myself up for an entire life of frustration, estrangement, and issues that could have been avoided. My girlfriend and I have lots of issues with the dynamic of our relationship as well, but I will write another post about that. What I need to know is if people have had similar experiences with in-laws, or what used to be potential in-laws, and if they had similar mental battles and how they dealt with it. From what I've read, I know in-laws can be a lot more direct with their harshness and deliberately drive a wedge in relationships. I feel as though they do so inadvertently because of how they are as people. Thoughts? Right. I have to be honest, Hellfreezer's note, I have to be honest, the biggest concern here is not your in-laws and how they act. That's very unsurprising for the kind of people you're describing. What I am concerned about is you've been with this woman since you were kids. So, 12 years you said, right? And she won't stand up. No, it's understandable why she won't stand up to them. She's essentially been indoctrinated to tolerate their way of thinking, even if she doesn't support it herself. But she's an adult. She's a grown woman now. She is capable and should have her own opinions. She should be defending her partner. And if she's not willing to do that, you need to ask yourself, do you want to be in a relationship for the rest of your life? Do you want to bring children into the world with a person who does not have enough respect for you as a human being to simply tell her parents to stop when they're being nasty? Because one of two things will happen. She'll either eventually come around, and there's been no indication that that might happen, or you will find yourself trapped and miserable in a marriage with kids, so you're forever connected to this person. Even if you get divorced, you're forever tied to this person and that family. Is that the life you want? You need to have a very frank and honest discussion with your partner about what you both expect from this relationship and what you expect from each other. I'm assuming you wouldn't allow your family to speak nasty about her. It definitely has to be the same way when it comes to you. It's going to be a tough conversation, and I wish you luck with it. 5. Just a bit of a rant. This happened about 6 weeks ago, but I keep thinking about it and getting annoyed. It's a relatively small thing in all the other drama we've had, but it just really bothers me. Some background. 15 years ago, my parents sacrificed their entire life savings to emigrate the entire family to the country we live in now. Our home country isn't safe or a good place to be. They're not in poverty, but they have never been able to claw their way back up financially. They still have quite a large mortgage on their house. My dad is past retirement age and is fairly ill, but couldn't even dream of being able to afford to retire now. Both my parents work as much overtime as they can just to get by. In-laws, on the other hand, are very well off. In fact, they invested wisely when they were young. Both father-in-law and mother-in-law were able to retire early. Which is great for them, but I'm kind of tired of hearing about how much money they have. 6 weeks ago, in-laws came to visit after they just got back from a trip to the Caribbean. They go 2 or 3 times a year. We had dinner at our house with the in-laws and my parents. My parents have just booked a trip overseas to visit relatives. At first my dad wasn't going to go to save on money, but after one of my family overseas had a health scare, my dad decided to go too. They were excitedly talking about how it's Dad's first holiday in 6 years. This conversation came just after they were talking about how they couldn't afford for him to retire, when mother-in-law jokingly called him a pensioner. Not 10 minutes after this, mother-in-law starts talking about a very expensive, few $1,000s, kitchen appliance she just bought, and encouraging my parents to buy one because it's amazing and makes her life so much easier. She went on and on and on and on about this thing, almost bragging about it. It's not a necessity, like a fridge, for example. It's just a totally nice to have, but not essential at all. I'm sure, I hope, she wasn't being malicious, but more just downright tone deaf. She kept saying, "Oh, you really need this. It wasn't too expensive. It'll change your life, blah blah." Maybe a couple of $1,000 for you isn't a big deal, but it is for most people. Typing this out, I feel stupid that it annoys me, but it really does. Surely she must know that my parents sitting there, smiling and nodding politely at her, could not possibly throw money around like that. Am I being sensitive? I just love my parents so much and appreciate the sacrifice they made for me and my siblings. Maybe it's just that on top of a bunch of other stuff, and this situation is going to seem like an overreaction on my part when viewed as an individual incident. I didn't say anything at the time, just kept thinking, shut up, please. Later I asked husband about it and he agreed that it was rude. I feel like I should apologize to my parents. It probably made them feel like crap, but I don't know. They haven't said anything. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to The Impractical Proudness of Parents, Ipop, episode 135. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button and click on all the various links and things, because that is 100% how YouTube recommends videos to other people. Little else actually matters. If you'd like to get early access to the videos, you can support me on my Patreon page, which is linked for you in the description. You can support me there for as little as $1 or more a month. You'll also find links in the description to the Hellfreezer Discord server, as well as my merchandise store, which is hosted on Teespring. And if you'd like to leave a one-off tip, you can do that by clicking on the heart with a $sign underneath the video player. And that is never required, but I very much do appreciate it. Okay. No other bits and bobs today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is water. This was not something I ever considered, because I always assume that unless it's meant to be a hot drink, it is always nicer and more enjoyable if it is served cold. But apparently there are people out there, and it's fair enough, who really rail against the notion of ice-cold water. They think it's bad for your insides. It isn't, but it's very good for regulating your body temperature, especially when things are warm. But everyone's allowed their own preferences when it comes to whatever they put in their body. If we all accepted that, life would be a lot happier. So, do you like your water at room temperature? Do you find it more pleasant to drink that way? Or do you like it, as I do, as some other folks do, as cold as possible without being ice? In fact, if you can get it at that point when there's just ice crystals starting to form, but it's not like fully frozen, perfect. Even sometimes when I come back from shopping, if I've bought like energy drinks, and they're not chilled, I'll toss them in the freezer for about 30 or 40 minutes. And if I get the timing just right, ice crystals are just starting to form, and it's so nice. I do have drinks in the fridge. I'll be doing that after I'm done with this recording. Anyway, let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's have a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one comes from Ipop 134, and is about moments I had you go, huh, I didn't know that. And today's answer comes from Spooky Tinny. Recall the song Voices Carry by Till Tuesday. I looked her up, it is Till Tuesday. Loved it even as a kid, and had the song recorded off the radio onto a blank tape. As a kid, I always heard one part as, "Hush, keep it down now, this is scary." Maybe 2 years ago I found out it's, "Hush, hush, keep it down now, voices carry." Then I discovered this year that Amy Mann was part of the 80s band. I never knew. Love her solo work too. Thank you very much for your answer, Spooky Tinny. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.